What went through your mind when you heard first that you will coach The Ultimate Fighter in Brazil? Your favorite country, by the way.
Yeah, you know, it was a bit of surprise. I found out from Dana live on the air on Fox Sports 1. That was it. I really didn't have a reaction. Okay. Okay was my answer.
You happy about that, or?
I'm not unhappy about it. You know, I want to fight with Vanderlei, and he's put a number of restrictions on the fight. You know, well, I'll only fight you if, and it's been a big checklist where I've had to go through all of his ifs. He even asked for a 30-minute fight, which doesn't exist anywhere in the world. And for a guy that gets tired in 30 seconds, I thought it was a bit of a strange request, but I agreed. And then he put the stipulation of Brazil, and I think he thought that would keep me away. But again, it's one more thing on the checklist.
Now, you're not the most popular guy in Brazil, obviously, and Dana White stated there will be security staff to look after you, so I don't think that will be too much of a problem. But will it be a problem to get guys to want to be on your team and to teach them stuff? Because most of the Brazilian fighters might have some, you know, animosity towards you.
Well, I'll say this. I have a job to do. You know, when I said that I would go coach them, I meant it. I will go there to coach, and it won't be to pick fights with Vanderlei or to build up a fight between he and I. I will be there for one reason, and that's to coach. And how the athletes respond, you know, it's a two-person sport here. They need to do their part, but it's their experience, and that'll be up to them.
What do you make of what he said about, I think he told one of the outlets down there that he wanted American fighters down there, for you to coach American fighters, him to coach Brazilian fighters, all against each other? Like a true USA versus Brazil thing.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm against it. I hadn't heard that comment. I like it. You know, look, let's make sure we're clear here. Vanderlei Silva lives in Las Vegas, Nevada. I live in Westland, Oregon. Neither of us are from Brazil. And the first chance he had to leave his countrymen, he did. He owns a business in America. He pays taxes to America. He enrolled his kids into an American school system, and he has contributed a grand total of $0 to Brazil, to any Brazilian charity. And there is no Brazilian charity that will come forward and defend him and say otherwise. He left that country. He was robbed the last time he went to that country at gunpoint. That is also on the record. So they're bringing in two outside guys.
You think he needs security down there too, the way you do?
I don't know what he needs, and I'm not focused on him in that regard. I think he should enjoy the remaining moments that he has in this sport.
You still have a fight coming up against Rashad Evans, and he's no pushover either. So, does it bother you that everyone's talking about this whole tough Brazil thing and is kind of looking over this important fight against Rashad Evans?
No, you know, Rashad is a very tough fight. World champion. He will be in the Hall of Fame. He's got the second best record in the entire sport. 23 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. But, you know, look, I can do more than one thing at a time, and I don't have to have everyone else focused on it or thinking about it. My first task is Saturday night, and we got Luke Barnett. He's going to be fighting. He's an undefeated UFC fighter and a young career. He's a very tall guy with very sharp and pointed weapons, mainly his knees, elbows, and fists. And that is my #1 priority.
Chael, Michael Morgan, World TV. I sat down with Anderson Silva recently, and one of the things he said was, 1, you were crazy, but 2, he was a little bit confused about how you felt about Brazil. Is that still your feeling, just going on your recent comments, or have you changed? Are you a gentler, kinder Chael towards Brazil?
No, I don't think I'm any of those things, but you know, Anderson Silva's got the right to his opinion, and he's got a big fight coming up on December 28th that I think we're all looking forward to. I know I am. And who knows? You know, I may reach out to Anderson and see if he wants to be on the coaching staff with me.
Hi, I'm Tyre with MMA Norway. You may or may not know that MMA is still banned in our country. And recently the president of the Sports Federation he called MMA fighting basically bare knuckle cage fighting. You have a comment on that?
Well, it's you know, look, I try not to argue with stupid people. He's got. We're not bare knuckle, so I'm not sure what it is he's referring to. I'm not a supporter of bare knuckle fighting. And
breaking arms and stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's basically what's going on in his opinion.
Sure, if he thought that there was somebody with bare knuckles, I'm with him. Let's ban that. That's not what we participate in. There's also no such thing really as MMA. We keep using that term. That's a term about a decade old. The sport that you're seeing is the sport of pankration. It's a national sport of the country of Greece. It was in the Olympic Games until 1904. They made a push to return to the Olympic Games in 2004 when the Games returned to Athens, and they passed every step except having a venue. They tried again in 2008, 2012, and they're trying for 2016 in Rio. They may be back in the Olympic Games, but we will be called what we should be called, what we've been all along, which is the sport of pankration.
What's your predictions for Chris Weidman and Anderson Silva?
Well, you have to understand in the history of combat, boxing, wrestling, and MMA, in the history, never, not one time, ever, has a rematch favored the older fighter. And don't tweet me and tell me these guys were 2 months apart. Okay, there's a 10-year age gap here. It will be amazing if Anderson can beat him, but there's a huge gap. You know, let's not forget, Chris Weidman dominated him on the ground and then got up and dominated him on the feet. This was not a close fight. It was also the worst Chris Weidman I've ever seen. I've never seen Chris Weidman fight so poorly. He slowed down significantly. When he was on top in the first round, it was off a very sloppy takedown. He gave up position going for a very reckless submission. He was taking a couple of kicks. He just didn't fight very well, and he still dominated and ended with a finish inside of 7 minutes. It's very hard to imagine a scenario where that gets changed, but Anderson Silva's a very smart fighter. He's very skilled. He's very experienced. I just don't think he wants to be in there. They asked him right after he lost, and he openly said, you know, my time as champion is done, and I believe him.
In January, I read your book. Will there be a follow-up of that, or would you do something like an audio tape next? As a lot of people do enjoy listening to you.
I appreciate you reading it. I hope you enjoyed becoming enlightened.
You gave me a bit of advice as well, which I do appreciate.
You're very welcome, buddy. Thank you. And I don't know if there'll be a follow-up or not. I had a lot of fun writing that book, and got out a lot of thoughts and opinions, but it was a fun process. It was a unique process, so I could see that happening again, but there are no plans.
Going back to Luke, obviously you're here for him. You're going to be in his corner. Have you taken him under your wing?
Well, you know, it's been mutual. I've gotten as much from Luke and Jimmy, who's here as well, as I've given, and probably more. And you know, we were on the set of The Ultimate Fighter. We always referred to Luke as the fifth coach. This guy coached all the time. He would show up to workouts with notes, pages and pages of notes that he'd taken the day before on what matchups we should have, why, strategies on winning. And you know, when they're in that house, there's no television, there's no phones, but somehow he got his hands on pen and paper in bountiful amounts, because he would come in more than prepared. And you know, he's a very smart guy. He's very intelligent when it comes particularly to the fight game. He's always ready. He's a great workout partner. He's a great guy. He's in a very tough fight Saturday, but they all are. There's nobody we could put him against where I couldn't say, wow, this is a really tough fight. So is he. He was in the toughest fight, an absolute war to get into the house. He was the first pick on our side because of how hard he pushed the pace, because of the shots he was able to take. He then got fight of the season for one of his fights in the house against Dylan Andrews. Dylan is an outstanding fighter, and that could have gone either way. He then had a dogfight in his UFC debut. So having tough fights is nice to say, but it's just not something that bothers Luke. It's not something that intimidates him, and it's not something that he's not used to. If I was to guess, I think he prefers it.
You had a lot of criticism of talking your way into title fights. Do you think that's unfair?
Well, I don't know that I've ever been criticized for it. I've always taken it as a compliment. You know, if you can go out and pick a fight, do it. There's no job in the world that you don't interview for, and that's through speaking. And you know, this is an art, if you will. We're doing martial arts. That's a form of expression. And as human beings, there's a lot of ways to communicate, but the most effective is through talking. It's what separates us from the animals. And if anybody doesn't understand that concept, and they're still out trying to send messages with smoke signals or tap it out in Morse code, that's on them. But I don't apologize for using my mouth.
Do you think there will be a third fight with Anderson Silva?
I would sure like a third fight with Anderson. I look at him differently now. I don't have a tremendous chip on my shoulder. But I also don't accept those fights. I don't accept the outcome of either one of those fights. And
why not?
And well, in the first fight, that would have been stopped 10 different times had the roles been reversed. I hit him 303 times. He hit me 11 times. That means that 10 different times in the fight, I hit him 30 unanswered times. That referee would have pulled him off me so fast if that happened one time. Referee didn't know what he was watching that night. He was so surprised at what he was seeing, and he didn't stop the fight. In the second fight, I fell down. He didn't knock me down. They ruled that fight a knockout. I fell down. In MMA, the most dominant round you can have is called a 10-8 round. It's also extremely rare. Most fighters will go an entire career and never have a 10-8 round. It is the perfect 10 in comparison to gymnastics. I personally have had 3 10-8 rounds in my life, and they were all against him.
But would you, if you ever meet him for a third time, would you prefer that would be a title fight, or well, obviously you would prefer winning the belt, of course, but would you rather fight Weidman or? I
always struggle when I say I don't think Anderson's going to beat Weidman. I feel as though that could be perceived as though you know, I have a chip on my shoulder. I'm not looking to disparage Anderson. He's had an amazing career. He will be remembered forever as the great that he was. He made a lot of money, and he beat a lot of really tough guys. I'm not attempting to disparage him, but to act as though a 38-year-old guy who's pretty openly said, I don't want to do this anymore, is going to beat an undefeated world champion 10 years younger is not something, people love to say that, but they're not going to the window and putting their money down and making a bet on that. It's just not a likely scenario.
Two more questions.
One question for you. I don't know if you've heard, Chael, but Tito Ortiz on the UFC's website is being taken off the Hall of Fame list, and this is only as recent as 2 days ago. What are your thoughts on that?
I am so confused by the actions of some of these guys. I am so confused by the guys that have sat down and ate at the table that Dana White set, that have then come out and done everything they could do to take a pound of flesh, not only from Dana but the organization. I don't understand it. I don't agree with it. It's mind-boggling. They'll come out and say everything they can to hurt the organization that helped them, that helped everybody in this room and everybody watching. And the reality is Dana White could sign Tito Ortiz tomorrow. Dana White could make one phone call to Tito and Tito would sign on the line. And I don't understand why he would say anything to Dana other than thank you.
Chael, you mentioned the possibility that you might ask Anderson to actually coach for you. It seems like that was maybe a Chaelism, for lack of a better term, but I feel like maybe you were being serious. How serious would that be that you would ask him to come down and help you coach?
Well, Anderson Silva was one of my first thoughts to ask, and again, that wouldn't be for me or for Anderson, but that would be for the young men who are kicking and clawing and trying to get into the UFC. I think that his knowledge of the sport is tremendous, but also his ability to communicate in a Portuguese atmosphere. Excuse me. would be very helpful. So I think he's got a relationship with Vanderlei, so it's probably not likely, but that doesn't mean I won't reach out.
Would you take
Okay,
a
guys,
second?
we're going to wrap it up there.
Would you take a second match against John Jones?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I would have a lot of work to do. When I fought John Jones, it wasn't very competitive, and it really surprised me. And I knew he was good, but I didn't think he could control me in that fashion. So I would need to make some big changes, but I have. You know, the day I got out of the ring, I made big changes. I packed up and I moved, and I'm in a different atmosphere now, and I'm working on things every day with that rematch in mind. Thanks, guys.
Let's go.
Thank you.
Chill.